Are you able to watch any of the NCAA tournament? Do you care at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, I was there for a long time. Certainly, a lot of relationships with different coaches and programs and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you follow it. I don't get a chance really to watch a lot of games just because of the amount of games that we have.
Do you target watching Florida at all?
If I can, I'd love to watch them because obviously there's still a lot of guys there on the team that I recruited and played for me, and want to see those guys do well.
When you were growing up, what was your favorite NCAA tournament moment?
Magic Johnson against Larry Bird, 1979.
Where were you watching it?
In my house with my parents.
Who were you rooting for?
I was a big Magic Johnson guy back then.
Ooh.
What
Yeah.
was it that, I mean, we can guess, but what was it that stood out about Magic to you back then?
Well, I think the other thing, too, is probably Indiana State did not have maybe the level of publicity that Michigan State had back then. And those two guys were obviously the two best players, but I was always fascinated, being somebody that was a point guard growing up playing, and it was kind of like a new phenomenon to have a guy 6'9" at the point. So I was always kind of like intrigued by that and just the way he played and those kind of things. So I was young at that point, but that was like my first glimpse of like a national championship game, being young.
Having now coached in both NBA and college, as far as the playoffs and the tournament goes, how do you compare the nerves from one to the other, the one and done situation versus coaching in a 7-game series?
Well, I think that the biggest difference is what you said. When it's a one and done situation, anything can happen on a given night. When you're in a playoff series, if you don't play particularly well in a game, you have an opportunity to come back and kind of redeem yourself. And certainly that's not the case in a tournament. And for a lot of teams, they spend the whole entire year, you're working like crazy to get to that point. You want to be playing really good basketball. And, it's so hard to get into the tournament. And when you get there, you want to play well. So sometimes when you don't play as well as you're capable of, that's disappointing. Whereas in the NBA, if you don't have one of those games in a playoff series, you can always kind of come back.
How fair do you think it is to judge college tournaments? Or not judge college tournaments, but judge college coaches based on tournament performance?
I've never really been a big believer of that. I think it's the totality of a season. The unfortunate part is I think a lot of times conference championships have been really diminished. That's a big deal. When you're competing in a major conference and you win a conference championship, I think it's a big deal. I think for the coaches and players that have got to go through a season, there's a lot of really things that happen that can be very, very positive. And I think it's just like the cycle of sports in our country. Baseball's kind of coming to a close. Football's starting up in the summer. Then training camp starts for the NBA in September. And then everybody kind of goes through college football and goes through the NFL playoffs, and then it kind of shifts to the NCAA tournament, then it shifts to the Masters, then it shifts to the NBA playoffs. So it's just a cycle. It's hard for people to follow, and there's some fanatical fans that follow it from start to finish, but for the coaches and players, they're going through every practice every day from start to finish. So I've always felt like the public pays attention a lot of times when the playoffs or the NCAA's starting, but a lot of times there's a lot more that goes into it than just that time of the year. No question, that time of year is great. You're playing for something, and you want to play well. I don't think the NCAA tournament is underrated. I think it's a great thing, but sometimes a team gets knocked out maybe earlier than they expected to, and sometimes it could be looked upon as not being a successful year, and in a lot of ways it is a successful year.
This 4 or 5 game stretch, what have you seen that's made Carmelo so successful from 3-point range?
I think he's getting good looks. Russell's done a good job. Paul's done a good job. Ray's done a good job. We found him in some space to get him the ball in good spots of the floor. Like I said, I feel really comfortable with him shooting the basketball from behind the line. He's, again, I think there's going to be ebbs and flows over 82 games, where there was a period of time he wasn't shooting the ball well. Now he has shot the ball better. I think we've gotten him some good looks, and he's gotten to a rhythm, I think, of shooting the basketball, which is positive.
Do you think the rest was beneficial to him in terms of the Portland game?
Yeah, I think that helps. I think, even, when you have 2 days now in between playing the Clippers, I think those days help. There's no question. But, he knows his body better than everybody. He played 3 games in 4 nights. I thought he played really, really well in the Atlanta game. He shot the ball very, very well in both halves. He was efficient on offense. So, that's one of those situations where you say, okay, it's on the second night of a back-to-back. Maybe he, wouldn't shoot the ball that well, but he did. So it's all based on how he's feeling and what he's going through, and trying to help him play his best basketball. But I think anytime a player gets an opportunity to rest some, it's certainly going to help them rebound.
A lot of big changes for the Clippers. Just what strikes you about them since the trade and how they've been playing lately?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously a really, really explosive offensive team. DeAndre Jordan is, still one of the best roles in the league, going to the rim and, occupies a lot of pressure at the basket. And then obviously, with guys like Lou Williams, Tobias Harris, those guys are shooting the ball extremely well. Austin, same thing. They've got an explosive team where they can score in the paint, and they can score in the perimeter, and then obviously they get to the free throw line.
Stephen practiced today?
Both he and Paul were limited. They were out there. They did some stuff, but they didn't do everything.
How do you feel about I was going to say, how do you feel about them for tomorrow night?
I'll probably find out a little bit more tomorrow after shoot-around to see if they're able to go through shoot-arounds tomorrow. They did some stuff today, but not everything.
When you say limited, you mean just non-contact?
Yeah, I mean, they did shooting, did some work, things that we were walking through. They were on the court, but the things that were contact, those guys were not out there for that.
But you guys you're gonna have ups and downs in an NBA schedule and patches where you get a break or it's more difficult. You get 11 straight now until the season's been out, where you're gonna play teams with winning records. Do you guys have to be a little more locked in for that when you go through a stretch where you're not really gonna get a break in terms of the teams that you play?
I think our guys have played pretty good basketball. I mean, I didn't necessarily like the first half against Atlanta, but we played really, really well in the second half. I thought San Antonio played really good basketball. Phoenix, we played really good basketball. So I think our guys have made some, really, really good positive improvements. And you're always fighting for that consistency because of the number of games that you're playing. But I feel like we've improved and we've gotten better.
Really, without revealing specifics, what did you do in there today?
What did I do what in today?
What happened in there today?
What, on the practice court? We watched film. We came on the court and broke down some defensive concepts that, coming out of our last game that we maybe had some challenges with, just to clean those things up. We did some live contact of playing in those situations defensively. We worked on half-court offense, and we worked on special situations and the clock situations. That was probably the main stuff that we focused on.
Does that mean the guys stand in certain areas, coaches coach, and then you run through a play and see how?
I'm sorry?
Where you place people in certain positions, call a play, watch how you play.
Yeah, we'll do that, or we'll just kind of like throw a situation. 5 seconds to go on the clock, ball on the side, and they've got no timeouts. And they've got to get us organized into something. You just try to work on those kind of situations, making sure everybody's on the same page. Working on offense, how this is being guarded, what happens if this happens, defensively, and what are counters and those kind of things, and just making sure everybody's on the same page.
Bill, you guys, there are all the teams that are kind of fighting in the playoff race right now and putting so much pressure on each other. It seems like every night you look at you guys win and everybody else wins. One team wins, it's hard to gain ground. Do you divorce yourself of what other people are doing, or are you kind of studying it? How do you?
No, I don't look at it that. I mean, I think our total focus needs to be on ourselves and what we have to do and the areas of improvement we need to continue to make. We got the Clippers tomorrow. They're playing really good basketball, and we have to play well. The one thing that's positive as it relates to our future, our destiny, where we're going, we're in control of that. But we have to play well. We've got to take on the competitive challenges that will be in front of us. But I'm not really out there watching what's going on other teams and things like that. I mean, I do based on our next opponent, but my focus is just on our team and who we're playing next and getting ready to play and trying to take care of the things that we have control over.
Billy, on that note, you guys have had one of the more efficient offenses in the league on plays after timeouts. Why have you been so successful in those plays?
I think we got several different options to go to, whether it be Carmelo or Paul or Russell, Stephen rolling to the basket. I think trying to organize timeout situations where maybe there's something that we can maybe take advantage of. I think our guys have done a good job executing, and they've done a good job making plays.
It's not because of the impeccable play calling?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know about all that. I mean, you can have great play calling. If you don't have players putting the ball in the basket, those numbers don't look great. So I think the guys have done a good job of taking advantage of situations and putting the ball in the basket, which has been encouraging.
Anybody else?